Hello and welcome back to the S.H.E Gallery Show. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for being with us, Trixter.
Right. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. And you are live with us tonight at the S.H.E Gallery Show. Please remember that you can call us anytime throughout the segment at 312-738-1060. Please remember that you can always visit us at our website at sharinghisenergygallery.net. And you can always email us, give us a call if you're ever interested. And just talking to us, learning more about the organization and S.H.E Gallery and any of our previous guests. So today we have a really special guest. This is Trixter, and he is one of Chicago's graffiti original pioneers. We know that S.H.E Gallery started with Paveway. That was a graffiti history show, right? Paving way to street art that's become so famous. So we're really excited to have one of the pioneers here.
Thank you.
And Trixter is not just a graffiti artist, he's also an educator that really focuses on evolution. And now we're not just talking about graffiti evolution, we're talking about evolution as a whole and with technology and science. But first, let's go to this really quick clip so you could learn a little bit about the mind of Trixter.
So other words superb, I guess we reads, right, written in trees and trees. Recapitulate, reminisce this premise of futuristic glimpse presented when I pen it. Intricate concept, architects, that's correct. I lift like paper airplanes, write brothers and take your flight. Through trees I talk, I take the lead with these rubber trees, erasable ink. I'ma flip the script. Hollywood, wow, Hollywood. I guess it's all good. It's this, is it, and would it be a very interesting script? The story of civilization through the tube which made it possible in placements. Remember, writers, writing is what it is. What you write in this hype type through this graphite, carbon.
That was the story of civilization and technology. It's amazing. Thank you. And that was your own writing, and that was your own film piece.
Yes, indeed.
So Trixter works in film clips. He does flows, poetry, music, fashion, jewelry. We're going to try to touch on a little bit of everything that he does, and it is a lot. So let's start off with your background, with the graffiti origins. You want to talk to us a little bit about your graffiti background, when the first time that you were introduced to graffiti?
Sure. Well, my earliest recollection probably was around in 78 or 79. I started seeing art and stuff represented in the community through street dance and street performers.
Here in Chicago?
Here in Chicago, yes. This was about 78 or 79. Groups like Tidal Wave and Zulu King Shaka and some of the other dancers, Rubber Ron, and other dancers and community people who were active in the scene. So I started seeing some paintings and stuff on the wall. I saw a few things here and there. I remember one crew called Down by Law. They had a mural on the west side of Chicago, Madison, just off of Laramie or so. And that was one of the first significant wall paintings that I saw. Because I used to visit the community there. My aunt stayed down the street, so when I would go over to her house, I always would pass by and I would see that, that mural over there during summer vacation from school. So that was one of my first introductions, and then
you remember this from?
Oh yeah. I remember
That's
pretty vividly.
Inspiring, yeah.
Yes, it was an interesting time because I didn't know the term graffiti per se. I just saw it as some cool stuff on the wall. I didn't really know the term graffiti
cool,
at the time.
Most older people that done graffiti don't. You just do it.
Yeah, you just do it, right.
Then you realize you're part of
a big culture.
Game,
yeah.
right,
So around 79, I started 78, 77 through 79. I started doing street dance, and I was doing martial arts, and avid in the community doing dance and stuff like that. And so when I went to grammar school, I started drawing in notebooks and decorating my notebooks and started doing my clothes, because we used to perform and dance, so it became natural for me to do these things. This was about, like I say, late 79, early 80, and then officially I started formally going out doing wall mural projects about 1981.
Wow, I wasn't even born yet. That's pretty pioneering. I'm not calling you old because you look great, but that's pretty old school, and we really, really want to thank pioneers like yourself for paving way for this huge movement, because it is people like yourself. Most people know graffiti, that know graffiti, know that there's always like some ego involved. But in speaking with Trixter, it's really interesting. I mean, you can see here, he always goes to the origins of. I thought that to be really, really respectable. That you always go to the origins of the letters and the writing and the importance of writing and the evolution of it. And then you move on to art and science. You want to talk to us about this transition?
Okay.
For the symbolism?
Sure. That previous video clip was called The Story of Civilization, and it was actually a segment that I created for a training curriculum and workshop that I offer here in Chicago, and it's structured to give the viewers a referential lineup of the historical periods that writing developed, and it also gives you an entertaining appeal using a modern, poetical approach, using hip-hop based language and delivery styles to give reference to these historical facts that we are, that are currently presented to us on the mainstream. And as we look further in detail into it, if you were to review it again, that's the whole challenge that I give to my students and attendees to the workshop. It gives a subliminal look and approach directly that give you, an idea of how history and the history of writing relates to society and civilization and the use of technology through the development of writing. As we look further, civilization and writing, I say that without writing, civilization and technology couldn't be possible, because if you look at it in its basic essence, if we take, just on a brief history lesson, the hunter-gatherers, as they say, the human culture first started out with, meaning before we became a sedentary culture, meaning people who sat around and gathered things and got together in groups and large groups and things of that nature. So with the transition to agricultural development, people started to need to keep track of things. So numbers were, as you know, numbers were created before symbolic alphabetical systems. So numbers were representative of counting things, of how we had volume of things. So, and with the development and further development of civilization, writing was used to keep track of things, to take record of things, and to help break up and delineate people into groups for work projects or things of that nature, and to keep track of records. Like if you want to keep track of a cure or something, or the development of a tool or something. So writing was used in this respect, so that we have reference and we can pass it on visually in addition to orally, because sometimes things might get lost. Things get lost or left behind. So writing was used as a memory tool to keep track, to advance civilization as we go on.
It's really interesting because we mentioned here multiple times the importance of journaling, and we refer to it as or I refer to it as a time capsule, because it does that. So you're talking about keeping a track of these records throughout the history of time. You could do that for yourself too.
Yes, you could.
And it helps you evolve.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So looking further, like at this current civilization, the dissemination of collective knowledge beyond oral histories. Here's a few points.
He's an educator.
Looking at our current civilization, there are many aspects to writing and language, such as business use, medical use, scientific use, and technology, use of jargon that's far beyond our common use of language. For example, like programming languages. We look at programming languages, it is a specialized use of language. It has, it emphasizes punctuations and setting parameters for, using if and when statements to deliver, the functions in those programming systems. We can look at pharmaceuticals, how they have really extended names. Like if you see a pharmaceutical drug or something that comes out, it might say cladroproglipidol, blah blah blah. It might be a
that's that jargon.
a 56 letter. So those are specialized uses of language.
Nurses have to learn that.
Yeah. So in the scientific classification, things like extended names used for classifying different structures. Technology use for like in machine development and inventing, things of that nature. And if you look at the basic aspect of computers, computers operate off 3 types of languages. You have what's called the machine-to-machine language, which is the machine communicating with itself and its parts to keep track of that one particular language. And then there's a secondary language that's called the machine talking to its programs, which programs are systems of order that keep track and make processes more efficient and allow you to create and create art and create programs like Microsoft Word. It's an arrangement of information to accomplish a certain task. So that machine has to be able to communicate to that program. And then from there, there's the top layer of language where the computer is communicating with the user. So it follows what input you give it, so it can create a final product. So those are some basic aspects of language and extended language use. And one key point that I always like you should be aware of is that the alphabetical system and language in itself is a machine, because any component that has multiple parts, individual parts, which are the letters, and then you have the 26 units, which is the core of the functioning system to make any number and anything in existence, because without a name, if it doesn't have a title, it doesn't exist. It's a word called unknown. So
really, really, really good point. And here we are, and we're all given a name, right, at birth. It's like, we gotta name baby 1, baby 2, or something. Everything needs a name for an identity. That's really interesting. So how has it been for you evolving personally, going from graffiti art in a time where we didn't have like Macs and Apples, and then you move into technology and doing your work with technology? Like,
well,
how has it been personally for you?
Well, personally for me, the adaptation of technology into my work was pretty natural, because I study structure. A lot of people ask why the symbolic letter form to be a focal point in art in general, because we've always been challenged with the statement, is graffiti truly art? Or not, and it still lingers on to this day, that debate and argument, which I find it bewilders me that it continues, because I mentioned earlier that we are we're in an information age and going into a knowledge economy, and data is one aspect of random collection of potentiality. It could be information, but it's pretty much at a state of data, and then data becomes what is information, because it is informed. I mean, it's been formed and put together into some type of order, and then from information becomes knowledge. So knowledge is a collection of bits of information that are put together to a practical use or beneficial use, and then knowledge becomes the next stage of knowledge becomes wisdom, which is the application of knowledge, and after it's tried and true and tested. So those were some of the key points that I took up as it regards technology. And go ahead.
No, that's really dissecting the process from data to real wisdom, and it starts with writing.
Yeah, it starts with writing. So that's some of the first things that we learn in high school is like the ball and stick method of learning how to write your name, how to identify yourself. It gives you a sense of self. So when I first started doing graph, to be given an additional name or to create and a nom de plume per se, or a pen name, like you have pen pals, and and these are things that we terms of endearment per se, And so as I started doing art and doing in the community, that turned into doing signage and clothing, and turned into a vocation for me. It brought me, you know, monetary support. It brought me a lot of things. It brought me a lot of comfort. It kept me out of trouble. A lot of people say graffiti saved their life, you know, 'cause
Yes.
gangs and stuff were prevalent, and hip hop, you know, provided me an alternative to that.
That's amazing. We do have a caller. Caller, you have a question or a comment?
Trixter.
Hey, how you doing?
What's up, brother?
All right, who's that?
Julio, just want checking you out.
No doubt. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for calling.
Drop that knowledge, man. Drop that knowledge.
No doubt, man. You know we got to do it, man. We got to put it out there, man. It's about the preservation. It's about getting the word out. You know, it's like, hey, you remember the voice of the ghetto?
And
That's what it's about. We got to get our word out there, because a lot of times we represent the voice of the unsilenced. That's what writing is. It's you know what I mean, and recording. It's silence. So we have to review it, you know, because a lot of times voices go unheard, opinions go unheard.
That's what's up, man. And people. So what can you? Just listening to you, not people think you're just a writer, right? But what you're presenting right now is hella deep.
Visit his website. He's amazing.
Mm-hmm. That's, you know, essentially that's what we started out as writers, to be called graffiti artists and things of that nature. Those were tagged, those were attached to us based off media, because we've been called many things: scrawlers, taggers, this and that. But if we look at other things in common society, like let's say for example Facebook. What we do in society, Facebook has emulated online, because essentially what we had was a network, a social network that, you know, crossed across national boundaries, utilizing various mediums, including trains and things of this nature. So you look at symbolically, since that's what we're talking about, as in a symbolic sense, trains being the train of thought, and what we think and how we write, and the network being us, the people, and we left tags. So if you look at Facebook, when it started initially, it had a thing called the wall, and you created a friend by networking with them through this medium, and you left a tag on their wall. So we preceded Facebook by 40 years almost.
Mm-hmm. And that's marking history. Now we're gonna thank you so much for calling. We're gonna take our next caller. Next caller, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, Trixter, I want to say I'm a big fan, and I appreciate the lifetime achievement that you've done for Chicago graffiti.
Thank you, brother. I'm looking forward to doing more.
An important question. How do you feel about
Thank you so much for calling.
One more time?
I wanted to say respect to you and everything you've done for Chicago. My question is, how do you feel about the educational system in Chicago stopping the evolution of our art form by stopping penmanship in school?
Oh my God, that's a great, glad you brought that up, man. That's very serious. That's a key point that I wanted to emphasize today, there's so many ways to approach it. Let's look at it in a scientific or medical sense. It's been proven that writing encourages synaptic connections. It has neurological implications if they were to take the pen and writing tool from school. I'm all for digital technology and things. I think it can be expansive for us, but I think writing is essentially tied to us. It embodies us, because we've been writing so long, and to take that away, that's going to change the development of our youth and our kids' brains, because the repetitive motion of typing is one thing. There's no motion. You'll be stationary, so those neurosynaptic connections won't happen without that constant flow in writing, because that's the natural order. If we look at linear order, which is how computers function and work, a lot of times they say don't color out of the lines and things like that, but that's one aspect of it. But we look at how our natural order is rhythmic, it's movement. We like to move. It's all about movement and swirls, and so we represent that in what we do with language. So it's important that parents be aware of these things. If they take the writing tool out of the kids' hands, I think it'll be challenged. There'll be some neurological things and mental health things, the issues that we'll have to deal with, because conformity is one thing. Conforming to society, I guess we have to in certain degrees, But the creative aspect, we also already challenged by the removal of art programs in schools today. So digital mediums can be an alternative, but we have to make sure that they're implemented correctly.
And that's really important. Thank you so much for calling. We literally only have 4 minutes left, and we really want to move on to talk a little bit about your artwork.
Okay.
Because we only have a little bit of time left. Please visit more on Trixter. You can visit his website. You can always contact him through our website as well. Because obviously he has a lot more information, and he's obviously a lot more than a graffiti writer. He works with a lot of other nonprofits, including his own. He's been named the top 2 godfather of Chicago graffiti and style by Complex, and he's received multiple nominations, awards. He's a great influence to all of Chicago. So thank you so much for all of that.
That's great. It's an honor to be here.
If I had an award, I'll give you one.
Yes, Can TV is a great production. They produce a lot of quality content and media that's essential to the human condition, for the betterment of the public and public welfare. So I always support them. You know, I think it's a great show, and I'm glad to be here. Glad to be on. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Let's talk about these pieces. You want to go through your pieces?
Sure. That's some of my abstract works. I deal a lot with abstraction because we deal a lot with abstracting typography and type forms. I also do a lot of expressionistic works. These are some of my paintings and expressionistic works. I also do jewelry, clothing, different things like that as well. This is just some of my painting works. Now, if you look at this piece here, this is a representation of letters. That's my name there, but it is depicted through different elements and structures in society. The first being a train. That T represents the stairway. That's a stairway to a subway station. And then the next letter is an R, which is about movement and things of that nature. And the next one being a prism, because that is a prism to reflect on, the I. And then the X representing the chromosomes and how the spirality of our human being. And then the return from that spirality into our structure, into our home. So that represents, you know, it's called architecture is the name of that work. It's a pictorial work, collage.
And here we go, and then we move on.
That was a piece I did at Northwestern, E being the 5th letter of the alphabet, 5 being the number, perfect number of the universe, as we have 5 fingers, 5 hands, 5 toes. So 5 is a very unique number. These are some different works and canvas works that are on exhibit now in different galleries around.
As we continue to show some of your work, we'll show some of your jewelry and stuff too. Do you want to give the audience some advice, just on, you know, you really have, you're doing what you love and you're giving back to the community, and you found a way to do that throughout your life. You want to give some advice and maybe some words of inspiration? This is amazing, by the way. Oh yeah,
that's some t-shirt art. Please just go through it. Okay, well basically I would say advice, be true to what you do, be mindful of where you're going with your art. It's important right now that we establish the continuity. One key point I'd like to leave everyone with is that first off, on the legality in graffiti, I would say that here's one key point you should always remember. Graffiti and writing in public spaces precedes property ownership by thousands and thousands of years, 30,000 years or more. So before anyone could say that they own some wall and that you shouldn't write on it, it's innate in the human form to leave markings. So that 30,000 years of writing and marking on walls before people became civilized and to say that they own a wall and that we shouldn't paint on it, it's innate in the human structure. So that's a big thing that you should know, is that how people say, what possesses people to want to do this? Think about that when that question arises. Another thing I think is important is the continuity of our form of our youth. We need to advance it, as there aren't any new forms of art since graffiti. Since graffiti was resurfaced, there haven't been any new developments in art, and all of the graffiti art that we do, we utilize and encompass all other art forms that have preceded it. So every art form that's been in existence, graffiti emulates and does that. We're in sculpture, we're in technology, we're in architecture, we're in the visual arts, we're in the spoken arts, we're in the performing arts. Everything.
It's a real community. It's a real community.
It is, and it's a global culture.
It really is, and we're so glad that it's made it this far, and so happy to have you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you again, viewers.